what's up?
The past few years of Ashton Kutcher's career has been a PR nightmare. Ashton Kutcher was considered the cool guy. His striking good looks helped him get discovered by Next Model Agency in New York. He appeared in big commercials for big names like Calvin Klein and modeled in Paris. When he transitioned to acting, he began playing likable characters like Kelso from That 70s Show and Walden in 2.5 Men. His most notable gig that became a classic in the reality TV realm is Punk'd, which was a practical joke reality show targeting famous celebrities. The show was a mega success and gave viewers a closer look at Ashton's personality, further winning fans. It wasn't until his contributions with the organization Thorn that he became beloved. Ashton became the chairman of the board of Thorn, the anti-child sex abuse organization he co-founded in 2009. Thorn works with a group of technology partners who serve the organization as members of the Technology Task Force. The goal of the program includes developing technology barriers and initiatives to ensure the safety of children online. Thorn created a tool called Spotlight that has helped law enforcement identify thousands of victims of trafficking by sifting through large amounts of online data to find and identify cases of sexual exploitation. With headlines reading, Ashton Kutcher helped save 6,000 kids from trafficking, he was building a reputation as a good guy who fights for the safety of children. He has testified before the U.S. Senate, highlighting the atrocities of human trafficking and urging stronger legislative action.
I've seen video content of a child that's the same age as mine being raped by an American man that was a sex tourist in Cambodia. And this child was so conditioned by her environment that she thought she was engaging in play. I've been on the other end of a phone call from my team asking for my help because we had received a call from the Department of Homeland Security telling us that a 7-year-old girl was being sexually abused and that content was being spread around the dark web. And she had been being abused and they'd watched her for 3 years and they could not find the perpetrator. Asking us for help. We were the last line of defense. An actor and his foundation were the potential last line of defense.
His work not only raised awareness but also actively contributed to disrupting criminal networks involved in child exploitation. Ashton was building a stable reputation to the public until his association to Danny Masterson and a continued friendship ruined his credibility. Ashton and Danny have a good friendship, co-worker relationship, spending years on That 70s Show, then getting casted for the Netflix original, The Ranch, further fueling their personal relationship. But this working relationship wouldn't last long as Danny Masterson was fired from his role on the show due to R accusations. 5 women came out and accused Danny of R-ing them. Not only that, but they also dealt with the harassment due to his membership in the Church of Scientology. The church is known for the way it handles abuse allegations, particularly against women. Former members and critics argue that the church discourages victims from reporting abuse to outside authorities, often pressuring them to address these issues internally, but when these issues are brought to the forefront, they are usually disregarded. It's usually high-ranking men in charge and they just don't care. 3 of the accusers who testified in the LA trial filed a lawsuit against Danny and the Church of Scientology, with Danny being a lifelong important member because of his wealth and public status. When the accusers came forward and reported it to the church, they were immediately shut down in order to protect Danny. On these occasions, Danny would slip substances into these women's drinks and they would either wake up to him penetrating them or wake up senseless, confused about what happened. There was an incident where a woman woke up during the R. He allegedly pulled a gun from his nightstand and ordered her to shut the F up. These situations were reported to the church, but instead the situation would be reversed back to the woman as a misunderstanding, or they would receive hostile threats of potential expulsion from the church.
The Scientology connection is important here because, as Rolling Stone reported, witnesses testified at the trial that Scientology has an expressly written doctrine that not only discourages but prohibits its members from reporting one another to law enforcement. Now, during their testimony and at the sentencing, as well as in separate civil lawsuits, Masterson's accusers said that church officials tried to silence them and cover up for Danny Masterson. During the trial, Variety reported that the women claimed, quote, the church dissuaded them from reporting Masterson to the police. Prosecutors argued throughout the trial that Masterson had taken advantage of his position in the church to women without fear of repercussion, and that the church forbid women from going to the police to report sexual assault, unquote. The Los Angeles Times says during closing arguments, prosecutor Ariel Anson told the jury, quote, the church tells his victims rape isn't rape. You caused this. And above all, you can't go to law enforcement.
When someone is expelled from the Church of Scientology, they are labeled as a suppressive person, which is a term for those considered enemies of the church. This leads to their isolation from other members, including family and friends who are still in the church, through disconnection. Expelled members are also insanely harassed for years. Because the women were fearful of expulsion, some were discouraged from filing police reports because they would be disconnected, meaning no money, no family, harassment, and having to transition back into the real world. At first, Danny denied these accusations and said that the women had only come forward because they'd been in contact with Leah Remini, who was working on a television series speaking out against the Church of Scientology. But eventually, due to the backlash and overwhelming testimonies, even the church themselves couldn't protect Danny anymore. Obviously, the church was trying to save face from their already horrible reputation, and they expelled Danny once he went to trial. While the church was trying to salvage their reputation, Ashton Kutcher and his wife Mila sent letters to the judge on Danny's behalf. This was all it took for Ashton to destroy the credibility he spent years building. This entirely went left for Ashton and Mila because they assumed that these letters would be sealed. But the judge thought otherwise. Ashton wrote that, while I'm aware that the judgment has been cast as guilty on 2 counts of R by force and the victims have a great desire for justice, I hope that my testament to his character is taken into consideration in sentencing. I do not believe he is an ongoing harm to society, further calling Danny a role model and a positive influence. Well, that's unfortunate, because it entirely contradicts everything that Ashton has worked so hard to build with Thorn. As Hollywood is starting to crumble, we continue to see why people reiterate how much parasocial relationships are damaging simply because you don't know the true character of a celebrity. I know once this dropped, their once amazing, top-notch, carefully curated PR team was blowing steam out their ears because this isn't something you could automatically fix. Fixing this for Ashton and Mila is something that only time will help them with. From their perspective, they didn't think that their letters would be public information. They have known, worked with, and befriended Danny for the past 20 years, so there's a strong possibility that they have never seen that side of him, or seen it but not to the extent where their association to him would be damaging to their own reputation. But because they are genuinely friends, Ashton was lending a hand out to his friend, regardless of how despicable his actions were.
I have more photos of Commando Kutcher here, naked in a club, than probably anybody.
No way. Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
Only
With my
had,
Polaroid.
after it closed.
The problem with this is the fact that it makes it look like he's willing to turn a blind eye to his friends while enforcing change and new policies to the public. You simply can't do both. It does go to show that this behavior isn't abnormal as we think. A lot of police officers, family members, high-ranking politicians enforce rules that isn't upheld to their own peers. A lot of people turn a blind eye to their family pedos or low-life crooked cops because they're your own circle. So the term birds of a feather flock together sometimes does uphold because you can't be a seeker of justice while also having bad crop around you. It's completely hypocritical. And their hypocrisy to this situation has completely put a dent in their once sparkling reputation. Not only was Ashton Kutcher forced to step down as the chair of Thorn, but he had to do a public apology.
We are aware of the pain that has been caused by the character letters that we wrote on behalf of Danny Masterson.
We support victims. We have done this historically through our work and will continue to do so in the future.
A couple months ago, Danny's family reached out to us and they asked us to write character letters to represent the person that we knew for 25 years so that the judge could take that into full consideration relative to the sentencing.
The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
they were intended for the judge to read, and not to undermine the testimony of the victims or re-traumatize them in any way. We would never want to do that. And we're sorry if that has taken place.
Our heart goes out to every single person who's ever been a victim of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or rape.
Whether or not their apology made sense to the public, was it a true apology or you're sorry you got caught? The video wasn't enough to take the heat off their back. As time went on, he's been able to move forward without much public scrutiny, but another bad apple has again been damaging to his reputation. The fall of Sean Diddy Combs. Since Diddy has been going down in the past few years because of the Cassie lawsuit and the plethora of countless lawsuits regarding SCX trafficking and drugging, the internet has made it its mission to dig up every and everything Diddy was around. Hollywood has been pretty quiet with the downfall of Diddy, not because they participated in any freak-offs, but because association to Diddy right now is borderline career suicide. There is absolutely no way Diddy is going to salvage his reputation. Hey, there's no way he's not going to jail. Even his own children won't be able to walk away from the bad press of their father for a very long time. Right now, nobody wants to get near Diddy, considering the public and law enforcement are trying to understand what type of undercover things Diddy was truly involved in, which includes the people he was around. Nobody is safe from the wrath of birds of a feather flock together.
Charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice.
Does that sound familiar? Aren't some of those words familiar to Thorn's cause? And you may say to yourself that Diddy didn't involve children, only teenage minors, as if that makes much of a difference, because regardless, a child is still a child. But no, we just found out that a child as young as 9 was involved in some capacity. Now, Ashton's association to Diddy all these years have come into question. What did he know and was he involved? We don't know anything. But now that just the thought has come into mind, it leaves room for speculation. Because just like Danny, Ashton also turned a blind eye to Diddy. And just like Danny, Ashton did not speak out to denounce the actions of his friends. Association can ruin a reputation, and right now, Ashton Kutcher, as quiet as kept, his reputation has been on a thin line because of his activism and how it's being destroyed by the people he was around. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you believe birds of a feather flock together, or Ashton should not be held responsible for the actions of his peers? Comment your opinions and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Toodles!